Greetings, it is I, Alex, once more on another episode of the Award Tour podcast with your hosts, me and
Owl.
yes, Owl. Today we're going to be talking about another Best Picture winner, or maybe it isn't, I don't know. You can determine that. Sunrise by F.W. Murnau. It won the same year as Wings back in 1929. I'm pretty sure it was 1929.
Yeah.
So, Owl, what do you think of it? Because I think you already know my opinions. I have zero clue what you think of it, though.
I thought it was very good. It's one I'd definitely like to see again a second time, but I did like it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What didn't you like about it, huh? Why do you hate it?
Yeah, I thought it was dog shit. In the year 1929, during the first Academy Awards presentation, it won for Best Unique and Artistic Picture. It is the only film to be awarded that since the year after it was discontinued. And the other equivalent award, Outstanding Picture, was decided later on to be the equivalent to the Best Picture, and that award went to Wings, which we covered in a previous episode. The film's who's the fucking director's name?
F.W. Murnau.
Yeah, a German expressionist director. He also did Nosferatu, you said?
Yes, and Faust, and I think it's called The Mad Laugh, or The Man Laughs. The last laugh. I was thinking of the Mad Hatter, or the Mad Laugh or something. The Last Laugh is his movie.
He was persuaded to come over to Hollywood to make sort of a German expressionist film within that framework. The city street set alone apparently cost about $200,000 to build and was reused in a ton of other productions by Fox.
$200,000 sounds really expensive for the times. I'm just gonna presume for modern standards, kinda.
Apparently, the original 35mm negative of the American version of it was destroyed in the 1937 Fox Vault fire, but a new negative of it was created from a surviving print, thank God.
Yeah, it's because film was made of nitrate, so it's just I don't know. There's so many stories about film studios of the era losing stuff to fires, and it just baffles me. That's it's made of nitrate. You think they'd have people on supervising at all times, but
yeah, even at the time, it was, I guess, considered somewhat of a lesser art form.
Yeah, they didn't take it seriously. I mean, there were people movements, but generally speaking, yeah, it was kind of seen as more disposable, because it was just kind of save it for later or something. It's put it in this dingy, poorly lit room in poor conditions, and it's whatever.
Yeah. Interestingly, there's also a 1939 German remake called The Journey to Tilsit, which takes on a more realistic approach and gives the characters names. Reading here from an article on silentfilm.org, the night of Sunrise's New York opening, Murnau's film was not the only attraction. An all-sound program, courtesy of Movietone Technology, was also shown. The Cadets at West Point, the first Movietone short subject. The film also was quite early to adopt sound-on-film score.
So it won artistic achievement or whatever. Basically, that's what it is. It's the artistic movie, and the one's a popular movie, and it only existed for that 1 year. But what I find interesting is the Oscars, not this one, the year before, I think, the 2022 one, they wanted to bring back basically that sort of weird kind of differentiating category with Best Picture and then Best Popular Picture. It was just on pander. It didn't play out because people thought it was a dumb idea. But I just think it's interesting that they were kind of thinking of bringing that sort of differentiation back.
So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Movie opinions. I thought it was really beautiful. It's I really like Wings, but this is kind of more of my sort of general thing, where in terms of I'm just kind of the montages and the way it's edited to have a dreamlike quality, the different kinds of things that the film focuses on. I don't know, it has this dreamlike and also kind of nightmarish quality to it that I personally really like and find fascinating. And
this is sort of aided by it very minimally using title cards, showing characters' dialogue. It's very much just showing the events.
Yeah, that's which I noticed also, because Wings has a lot of title cards, and this really doesn't. It's really just kind of visually driven, the whole thing, with its like camera angles and like how it moves around and its use of, I think it's like rear projection. I'm pretty sure it's not blue screen. There's a part where they're just kind of walking through town and there's like getting in the way of traffic. It like the background switches from like that to like different locations and all that sort of stuff to kind of, you know, kind of show like they're in this like dreamy haze, caught up in the moment of falling in love again. How, you know, even though time passes and things change around them, they still stay the same. And like that sort of stuff, like, you know, it's like visually, like a thing you can only really do visually rather than like reading it in a book or seeing it in a still image. That sort of stuff I think is really like beautiful and whatever. I don't know, really just the story, which I know some people think like, oh, it's basically saying like, oh, it's okay to be abusive as long as like you're like sorry for it. It's like, well, that's, I don't know, the movie's way more metaphorical. It's not super literal about like this happens and this is the thing.
And human relationships are also very complex, you know?
No, yeah, but they're just saying like, oh, like you're about to kill this person and then like in a day you just like change your mind. But no, but like, you know, because kind of like metaphorically speaking, the story of like you kind of like start to fall out of love, and he goes to the extreme end of like, you know, he finds like another lady and wants to get rid of this other girl, but kind of, you know, deep down's like, you know, I can't, you know, I don't love you like that anymore, but I don't hate you and I can't go through with this. It's just about him trying to make it up and kind of like rediscovering his feelings. And then, you know, the cruel twist of fate, or almost, because it doesn't actually happen, where he thinks she dies by the end of the movie, which I wonder how it would have been if the movie ended that way, but it's not trying to be like that. It's just like a love story, which sounds obvious, but it's just told really well. It's like the essence of love, of falling and losing, and all these like mixed emotions. And at the end of the day, because they, you know, it's everything's all peachy and everything worked out despite the fact all these like horrible obstacles they had to go through. Like I said, visually, I think it tells it really well, and it's also acted well.
I found interesting, there's a little bit of class commentary, you know, the film opens on the man's mistress, like, coming from the city for a visit to the town, and she sort of just stays there with some family who I guess she's hired to be her maids or whatever. The man is sort of being pressured by her and other people to sell off his farm and move to the city, sort of similar to Wings, with the rich people of the town interacting with the poorer people there.
Because I have like little tidbits about the director, like, you know, he made this in America, but like the director, I don't know if you know this, but like was gay and died not long after this movie specifically, but like he died pretty young at like 42 years old in 1931. The thing that I found interesting is like the director had like a lover during World War I, and he died in that. A lot of his films, I've only seen this in Nosferatu, so I can't say about everything else, but apparently all of his films, or most of his films, tend to kind of commentate about like the sort of like the pain and like darkness of losing someone you love, and also the horror of war and that sort of stuff. And I think this film, I mean obviously he was like not gonna make like a movie about like two men, because in America he'd probably get like arrested or something at the time for even doing that. But just, you know, just that sort of thing about like love and loss, and like Nosferatu has like similar sort of things, although that's like more veering into like horror specifically. But I don't know, it's just interesting to read into that sort of stuff and then watch this movie and kind of think about like, you know, this guy lost like his lover in war, and he'd had a very obviously unpleasant experience in World War I. And also Nosferatu, where as it's part of like German expressionist sort of thing, where it's about expressing like inner and like psychological type feelings outwardly. So like if you feel like if your headspace is all fucked up and miserable, the world you inhabit should also represent that. Hence, like in Caligari, there's like twisted architecture and like shadows everywhere, to kind of portray like the fucked up like mentality that's like coming from that like movement of like expressionism, which is very like psychologically driven. And then moving into this, it's like a complete like evolution in terms of Nosferatu's like being that, and then this, which I think is much more even less conventional than Nosferatu. And through like its editing and visuals and how it like moves things around and like tells a story through like even like seemingly like random things, like shots of things that like are not explicitly tied to the story. And you know, this is around the time of like Battleship Potemkin, Sergei Eisenstein. He's the father of montages and stuff like that. So it's like, you know, all these like little movements that have been happening since he made Nosferatu in the early 20s into this thing in the late 20s, where we've had sound start to creep into movies and montages and greater advancements in like camera movement and editing and stuff like that. So I don't know, that's just my perspective. You haven't seen Nosferatu yet, but like just kind of fascinating to watch, like, oh, this is like, it's like a 7-year difference, but it feels like it's already, feels like 2 decades or 3 decades have passed already.
I guess I'll also say the leading actress Janet Gaynor also won for Best Actress in a Leading Role the same year. But at the time, acting awards were given for an actor's entire body of work within a year, so it was also for her work on Seventh Heaven and Street Angel. It also won Best Cinematography for Charles Rocher and Karl Struss. It was also nominated for Best Art Direction, but didn't win.
What won?
I don't know. Let me look it up. The Dove won.
Dove, okay. I mean, at least it won cinematography, because I was thinking like the little things, like when they go to I didn't mention this earlier, but like specifics of the film other than like the little montage of them walking down the street. The part where they go to like, it's like a carnival or like a fair, and the camera's kind of like swishing around and moving, and you know, we're with them, but you're like, again, like a dream. I don't want to sound repetitive, but like a dream, we kind of are with them, and then the camera like intentionally seems to kind of get lost in like the lights and the movement of the rides and the crowds of people, before we kind of come back to it. Like, again, like a dream, your subconscious is kind of like driving things forward and whatnot, and the movie does a lot of stuff like that. And again, lighting also, where it's much more stylized when it's able to, because a reason the lighting in like Caligari is painted, the shadows, because you can't really light a movie in this era like you could like a David Fincher movie or like The Godfather, a Gordon Willis movie, cause the DP, but where you can kind of use minimal lighting for like specific things, because you kind of have to like blow out the whole thing, otherwise the camera's not going to really capture it, or it's going to look really terrible. But when it's able to, like, it's much more stylized with like its shadows, and when the the kicker, and other sort of stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's well deserved. I was gonna say, for acting, I haven't seen the other nominees. She did good. I think he did good also, but I don't think he won. Or you said he didn't win, but I don't think he got nominated. So
yeah, I said all the wins and nominations for it.
Yeah, which is weird that this won. I mean, this got nominated for more things and won more things than Wings. Like, Wings only got like Best Picture and like achievement in like, what is it, like technological achievement or whatever.
Yeah.
Like for its special effects. I don't know. It's just interesting that it didn't really get nominated for anything else but like those two things. But it's kind of more remembered as like the actual Best Picture winner, even though Sunrise seemed to be the more favorably looked at movie, which in time it kind of is, because it's considered, as you were probably looking into, it's considered like one of the greatest films ever made. Like, not just of the like, I think of the silent era, many would consider it to be the best silent film, or one of them. But Wings, I don't think is even categorized that highly, even for silent film era stuff, which I really like Wings, but I do prefer Sunrise and like The Kid, the Charlie Chaplin movie, and like Caligari, The General. But I don't know, they're both really good movies, but it's just kind of interesting to see like how the Academy retroactively decided one's the best picture, the real Best Picture winner, but like history kind of is like prefers Sunrise. That's just kind of the never-ending story with the Oscars. Where they pick a Best Picture winner of like, like 2010's like notorious, where like The King's Speech won, but then like out of everything that was nominated or didn't win, or movies that didn't even get anything that year, there's like The Social Network, Black Swan, True Grit, Toy Story 3, but then, like no one talks about like The King's Speech. People talk about the other movies I just mentioned, and the ones I'm forgetting off the top of my head. Wrap it up. I don't know. It was very beautiful. I felt very touched by it. It's the kind of stuff that I personally, like I already said, gravitate to in terms of my interests, and like the kind of stuff I want to make. Like the thing what I'm writing right now, where it does have to deal with like that sort of lust. I mean, this is more like an actual love story, but like the thing I'm writing, like kind of elements of lust and dreamlike quality with its editing and that sort of stuff. And I'm just like, I don't know. When I saw this, I was like, oh, cool. I'm so glad everyone had the same ideas that I have right now 100 years ago. You know, I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing anything new, except it's gonna be gay and this is straight. So
Yeah.
we'll just Moonlight. Whatever. That's like wait. I was like I had. It's like wait, Moonlight already beat me to that also.
That also, no, that, yeah, that one, yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to Moonlight in like 30 years or however long, you know.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Unless we do like a speed run eventually where we start to think like we don't have much to say about like these 3 movies that one in a row. We can just lump them into one thing, you know.
Yeah, I think we should do that. Do like 2 movies an episode or something. That could be better.
Or at least watch 2 movies, and if we feel we don't have enough to say individually about each, like we had a lot to say about Wings because it's the first, and we both really liked Wings and whatever. But like if
and it's an easy one to talk about as well, I think.
yeah, like this is like kind of on the shorter end of things, but like if there's like ever a movie where we just really don't have much to say, because there's movies I've seen that I'm just like, I don't know, like I've seen it, I really just have nothing to add to it, then yeah, we can be like, you know, like, okay, cool, good thing we watched these 2 movies and we can put them in one episode. It should be like 2, right? I feel like 3 is excessive.
You two movies? Yeah.
Yeah, like unless it's a movie that, like, I'm pretty sure once we get to All Quiet on the Western Front, the original one, I feel like, I mean, because we've both seen the remake and whatever, I feel like for that one, that's enough. We'll probably have enough to talk about for a whole episode. But if we get to some of these like movies that are more forgotten and don't seem well liked, we might have to lump them in together. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems like a good plan, I think.
This film also fell into the public domain just this year, so you can go fucking anywhere and watch it for free, which I would very much recommend doing. I think we both would.
Yes.
Yes? Yeah. Okay, I guess we can end it now.
Okay,
This
okay,
has been
bye.
this has been the Awards Your podcast.
Tune in next time as we talk about the film. I forgot the name of the next movie.
Reddit Nation, disassemble.